For as long as I could remember, I'd been trapped in a forgotten corner of rural Kentucky. Life was always a battle. My foster parents never showed me any affection. They refused to let me attend school when I reached the appropriate age. It took 2 years of relentless pressure from the town council before they finally permitted me to step inside a classroom. Everything changed 3 years ago when a devastating flash flood triggered a massive mudslide that swept them both away. I was living in the school dormitory at the time, which is the only reason I survived. But life became even harder after their deaths. I thought I'd be stuck in that miserable town forever, but it seemed fate finally decided to throw me a lifeline. I was just heading out for my dishwashing shift at the local diner when a police cruiser pulled up in front of my rundown apartment building. Behind it was a sleek black Escalade. The doors opened, and a well-dressed middle-aged couple stepped out. I stared at the man's face, and my heart lurched violently in my chest. A state trooper walked over, holding a thick file. "Are you Marcus Bennett?" he asked. I nodded, and what followed was a scene straight out of a daytime television drama. My new father had his driver distribute thick envelopes of cash to the neighbors who'd helped me over the years. After a quick round of emotional goodbyes, I sank into the plush leather seats of the luxury SUV. "Your name was Ryan Ashford," my father began to explain as the car pulled away from the curb. "Back then, we were just starting out. Your mother and I were working around the clock to get the business off the ground, so we left you with your older sister. She's 6 years older than you, but she was only 9 at the time. She got distracted while playing, and someone took you. All these years," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "we never, ever stopped looking for you. So my name was Ryan Ashford, and I had a sister. What's the family situation?" I started to ask, unsure of how to even phrase the question. "Your sister is Scarlett Ashford, the actress," my mother jumped in, her eyes shining with tears. "She's filming in London right now. When we told her we'd found you, she broke down crying and said she wanted to stop production and fly back immediately. The earliest she can get here is probably tomorrow." She added, "You also have a cousin living with us. He's a month younger than you." A cousin. A knot of dread tightened in my gut. Just the other day at the diner, I'd overheard the kitchen staff gossiping about one of those trashy short dramas on social media. The plot involved a wealthy family finding their long-lost son, but only because their sick adopted child needed a kidney transplant. I subconsciously touched my side. My real parents couldn't be that twisted, could they? My father, oblivious to my sudden anxiety, just sighed heavily. "Your aunt and her husband died years ago in a drunk driving accident. Your cousin was only 6 with no one to look after him, so your mother and I took him in. He took our last name. His name is Derek Ashford." I leaned back against the headrest, my mind racing with possibilities. An adopted cousin. The real heir versus the replacement. This whole situation had a bad smell to it. If this Derek guy was decent, then fine. But if he was like one of those characters from cheap web novels, the kind who'd stolen my life and now wanted to make my existence a living hell, I ground my teeth together. I wasn't one of those spineless protagonists who just turned and walked away. What was mine, and I'd be damned if I let anyone push me around or make me feel worthless ever again. In the span of a single day, I rode in a luxury car for the first time, flew on a private jet for the first time, and was now about to live in a mansion for the first time. When the Escalade pulled up the long, winding driveway, my jaw hit the floor. It was a sprawling stone mansion, the kind I'd only ever seen in architectural magazines. A massive fountain in the circular driveway shot plumes of water into the air, shimmering with rainbow colors under the landscape lighting. "Ryan, this is our home," my mother squeezed my hand, her voice filled with hope and longing. As we reached the grand front entrance, a handsome young man in his early 20s was waiting for us. He was dressed in a tailored button-down shirt and dark slacks, with a pair of thin-framed glasses that made him look scholarly and refined. The second he saw us, his eyes turned red with emotion. He hurried over, gave my parents a respectful nod, and then turned to me. "Ryan," he started, his voice cracking slightly. "It's so good to finally meet you. Welcome home. I'm Derek, your cousin." He sounded like he was about to cry. "I heard about everything you went through. It's a miracle you're finally home where you belong." Before I could respond, he turned back to my parents, his eyes welling up even more. "I'm so happy for you both for finally finding him. With that, he picked up a suitcase that was sitting by his feet. Now that Ryan is back, it's not right for me to keep taking up his space. The life I've had, the privileges I've enjoyed, should have all been his. I'll leave now. He wiped a tear from his eye. Please take care of yourselves, and thank you for everything you've done for me all these years. I watched his little performance, this whole theatrical display of him pretending to leave, and I had to stop myself from laughing out loud. Here we go, I thought. What a two-faced snake. If he wanted to play the victim, I could do that too. As he turned to make his dramatic exit, I secretly dug my nails into my own thigh. The sharp, searing pain brought tears to my eyes instantly. Wait, my voice came out as a choked whisper, trembling even more than his had. Derek turned back, a flash of genuine surprise crossing his features. Don't go, I wiped my face, letting the tears fall freely. I shouldn't have come back. The minute I show up, I'm already tearing this family apart. How could I do that to my own parents? I looked at my mother and father, hanging my head low in shame. I spent my whole life in a small town. I barely finished high school. How am I supposed to compare to Derek, who's had the best education money can buy? If I stay here, I'll just be an embarrassment to you. Maybe it's better if I just leave before I cause any more trouble. I grabbed my own worn-out canvas duffel bag and turned toward the door. What is this nonsense? My father grabbed my arm, his grip firm and reassuring. You are my son. Even if you don't know anything about this world yet, that's our fault, not yours. We have so much to make up for. My mother rushed to my other side. Ryan, don't even think that way. We feel nothing but love and guilt for what you've been through. We could never, ever be ashamed of you. I snuck a peek over my shoulder. Derek's face was frozen in a mask of disbelief and barely concealed anger. My father turned and glared at him. Derek, stop this foolishness. Do you really think we can't afford to raise two sons? You will always have a place here, but don't say things that will make your cousin feel unwelcome. My mother's tone was also tinged with annoyance. You know you've lived a life of comfort for over a decade while he suffered. The least you could do is be generous and mature about this, not throw a childish tantrum. For a split second, Derek's expression twisted into an ugly snarl. He gripped the handle of his suitcase, his knuckles turning white, before finally lowering his head. I understand, Uncle, Auntie. I saw him bite his lower lip as he looked down, and I knew exactly what was going on in his mind. Derek's little gambit of pretending to leave was so transparent that my parents saw right through it. Their words weren't just comforting me. They were a clear warning to him. Good. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. It turned out real-life parents weren't like the clueless idiots in those web novel dramas, easily fooled by a few crocodile tears. But I glanced at Derek and realized that my new cousin was the one with a few screws loose. The days ahead weren't going to be quiet. Fine by me. The hell I'd been through wasn't for nothing. If anyone wanted to screw with me, they'd better think long and hard about whether they were up for the fight. The atmosphere at the dinner table was decidedly strange. Derek kept putting food on my plate, a look of utter sincerity plastered on his face. I ignored him, not touching a single thing he'd served me. I just kept my head down and ate my own food, knowing damn well he was already plotting his next move. Sure enough, the moment we finished eating, Derek stood up. I'm heading upstairs. Ryan, you should get some rest too. I just grunted in response. I waited until he was halfway up the grand staircase before I slowly got up to follow. As I reached the landing, I saw him standing there with his back to me, waiting around the corner. My stomach dropped. I stopped in my tracks. He spun around, his glasses slipping down his nose slightly. The polite, scholarly look from earlier was gone, replaced by a venomous hatred that seemed to radiate from him like poison. Why did you have to come back? He hissed. I didn't say a word, just waited for him to continue his tirade. I heard your foster parents died in a mudslide. He took 2 steps closer, his voice a low, menacing whisper. Why didn't you die with them? Why do you have to come back and try to take what's mine? How can you be so selfish? His words were so twisted that I almost laughed. My entire sense of morality felt like it was being ground into the dirt. Are you mentally ill? I asked, staring him down. I'm their son. If anyone's the imposter who stole someone else's life, it's you. This is my home. I've lived here for 16 years, he snarled. I swear I can make everyone in this family despise you. I can make them throw you out like a dog. My internal alarm bells were screaming. Here it was. The real performance was about to begin. He leaned in closer, a cruel smirk on his face. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, the son they've raised for over a decade, or you, the uneducated nobody who just crawled out of the backwoods? Before I could react, he suddenly swung his elbow back, slamming it into a large ceramic vase sitting on a pedestal at the corner of the landing. It crashed to the marble floor with a deafening shatter, sending shards flying everywhere. Ah, he screamed, stumbling backward and conveniently falling right onto a pile of the broken pieces. What was that? What's going on? I heard my parents' voices from downstairs, followed by the sound of their hurried footsteps. I looked up to see them halfway up the stairs, their eyes fixed on the shattered vase and Derek's hand, which was now bleeding from a fresh cut. Derek's eyes immediately filled with tears. His voice trembled as he looked fearfully from them to me. I'm so sorry, Uncle, Auntie. It was my fault. I was talking to Ryan, and I said the wrong thing. I upset him. He didn't mean to do it. Please don't be angry with him. I just stood there, watching his pathetic backstabbing performance. It was almost comical. My mother came up the rest of the way, looking at the mess and then at me. Ryan, what happened here? Derek kept the act going. It was really my fault. I wasn't standing properly. I rolled my eyes, too tired to play along with his soap opera. I didn't break the vase. I glanced at the shards on the floor, my voice flat and matter-of-fact. Of course, I don't have any proof. You can believe me or not. I looked them straight in the eye. I suggest you install some security cameras around the house. It would prevent this kind of he said she said nonsense in the future. My father was silent for a moment, then he put a hand on my shoulder. We believe you, Ryan. We know you wouldn't deliberately cause trouble. My mother nodded in agreement. They both turned to look at Derek, their expressions hardening considerably. Derek, is there some misunderstanding between you and your cousin? If you have something to say it directly. Don't resort to this kind of drama. The color drained from Derek's face. His bleeding hand clenched into a fist, and he couldn't hide the bitter resentment in his eyes. He bit his lip and looked down. No misunderstanding. I guess the vase wasn't placed securely. It must have fallen on its own just as Ryan was walking by. I must have seen it wrong. He looked up at me, his voice barely a whisper. Ryan, I'm sorry. I jumped to conclusions. Please don't be mad at me. Can you forgive me? I let out a short, sharp laugh and said nothing. His story was falling apart, and that was the best excuse he could come up with. Who did he think he was fooling? My parents exchanged a knowing look and didn't say another word. They just asked one of the housekeepers to clean up the mess. They didn't believe his ridiculous story for a second. They were just trying to save him some face. You don't build a billion-dollar empire by being unable to see through a teenager's clumsy theatrics. Clearly, my dear cousin hadn't counted on the fact that the parents who had raised him for 16 years weren't about to blindly take his side. I glanced at Derek's lowered head and smirked. I'd endured hardship for 16 years. I'd seen every kind of cruelty and every dirty trick in the book. My backbone was made of steel. He wanted to make me suffer. Not a chance in hell. The next day was a blur of bureaucracy. I spent the entire day with my father getting my legal name changed, applying for a new social security number, and handling all the necessary paperwork. It was exhausting. In the car, my father mentioned that Derek had left early that morning to meet with Victoria Sterling, the daughter of the Sterling family. The Sterlings are old business partners, he explained. Harrison Sterling and I thought it would be a good idea for the two of them to spend some time together. If they hit it off, we could merge the two business dynasties. I kept my face neutral. Victoria Sterling. The name sounded like something out of an old Hollywood movie, all class and sophistication. I had to shake my head. Those damn web novels were rotting my brain, making me slap labels on people I'd never even met. We got home late that afternoon, and just as we walked in, I heard the sound of a rolling suitcase behind us. I turned to see a woman in a stylish beige trench coat and dark sunglasses striding through the door. The moment she took off the glasses, her eyes were red and puffy. "Ryan," her voice trembled. She rushed over and threw her arms around me, her tears soaking my shoulder. "I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I should have been watching you. I'm so sorry you had to suffer so much." I stood there frozen, not knowing where to put my hands. This had to be my sister, the famous actress Scarlett Ashford. On screen, she was this untouchable, glamorous star. But right now, she was just my sister, holding me and crying. "It's okay," I said, patting her back awkwardly and gently creating some space between us. "You were just a kid too. It wasn't your fault. The people to blame are the ones who took me." She wiped her tears and managed a small smile. "You're pretty good at this whole comforting thing, aren't you?" Just then, I felt a hateful glare coming from the top of the stairs. I didn't have to look to know who it was. I was surprised Derek was back so soon from his meeting with Victoria. When Derek saw that I'd noticed him, he plastered on a fake smile and came down the stairs. "Scarlett, you're back. I thought you were still filming in London." My sister's face hardened instantly. "My little brother, who's been missing for 16 years, was just found. Don't you think it's reasonable that I couldn't wait another second? I took the first red-eye flight I could get." I could practically see the cracks forming in Derek's friendly, harmless mask. "Keep it up," I thought. "Let's see how long you can maintain this act." The more he schemed, the faster he'd crash and burn, especially with a family that actually had their heads on straight. The following evening, the Ashfords hosted a reception at one of their downtown hotels. My father stood with me in the center of the elegant ballroom. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my son, Ryan. After 16 long years, he's finally home." The room erupted in applause and congratulations. People were patting me on the back, telling me I had my father's eyes and my mother's determination. I wasn't used to this kind of attention, so I just stood there with a stiff smile plastered on my face. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Derek across the room, champagne flute in hand, chatting amiably with some guests. He looked perfectly composed, but when his eyes met mine, I saw a flash of pure venom that he quickly masked. I just smiled to myself, not letting it show. Just then, my father pulled me over to another table. "Ryan, this is Harrison Sterling, one of my oldest friends." He then gestured to the elegant young woman beside him. "And this is his daughter, Victoria." I finally got a good look at her. She was tall and graceful in a pale blue evening dress, her hair styled in soft waves. When she smiled, she had two faint dimples. She was beautiful, but in a clean, classic way, nothing like the femme fatale I had pictured. "Mr. Sterling, Miss Sterling, a pleasure to meet you," I said, keeping it formal and respectful. Harrison Sterling smiled warmly. "It's good to have you back, son. Your father has moved heaven and earth looking for you." Victoria offered a polite smile of her own. "It's nice to meet you, Ryan." After a few minutes of polite small talk, I excused myself. Just 2 days ago, I was scrubbing pans in a diner, trying to figure out how I'd afford dinner. Now I was standing in a glittering ballroom, listening to conversations about stock portfolios, mergers, and international investments. I was completely out of my element. My sister Scarlett found me a few minutes later and handed me a glass of juice. "A little overwhelming, isn't it? Don't worry, you'll get used to it. I'll teach you everything you need to know." I took the glass, and the genuine warmth in her eyes made me feel a little less like an alien. Later in the evening, I went to the men's room. I had just washed my hands and was drying them when I turned to find Derek blocking the doorway, his arms crossed, his eyes dark and menacing. "Feeling pretty proud of yourself," he hissed, his voice low and tight with anger. "The whole family is wrapped around your little finger. You think you've won?" He took a step closer, the jealousy practically dripping from him. "I was by their side for 16 years. Whenever Scarlett came home, I was the first person she asked about. Why do you get to come back and steal everything from me?" I was done playing games with him. I didn't even look up from drying my hands. "Because I'm their son. Is that reason enough for you?" "You," his face contorted into a mask of rage like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "I can let the other things slide," he continued, his voice shaking with fury, "but if you dare to even think about Victoria, I swear to God I will kill you." His logic was so warped that I could only frown in confusion. Dude, are you insane? I've said exactly 2 sentences to her tonight. Basically hello and goodbye. I looked him up and down. You might be a little paranoid. Don't play dumb, he suddenly shouted, his eyes full of poison. Those old bastards are probably already thinking about setting you up with her instead of me. And don't think I didn't see you looking at her. Do you think I'm blind? I was completely speechless. This guy was certifiable. Think whatever you want, I tried to step around him. All I care about right now is getting through college and learning about the family business. I couldn't give less of a damn about your romantic drama. If you're smart, you'll stay out of my way, and we can at least pretend to be civil. As the words left my mouth, his entire demeanor changed dramatically. The menacing rage vanished, replaced by a look of pure terror. His voice started shaking violently. Ryan, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I won't fight you for anything. I swear. Please, just leave me alone. My stomach lurched. Oh no. Before I could process what was happening, he slapped himself hard across the left cheek. The sound echoed sharply in the marble restroom. A bright red handprint instantly appeared on his skin. Then he grabbed a heavy-duty mop from the corner, and to my utter shock, slammed the wooden handle into his own forehead. There was a sickening thud, and blood immediately started to trickle down his face, dripping onto his crisp white shirt. I was so stunned I couldn't move. He actually did it. Arg, he screamed, stumbling dramatically out of the restroom. I ran out after him, but by the time I got to the corridor, the reception had already devolved into chaos. Derek. My God, you're bleeding. It was my parents and sister. When I reached them, Derek was clutching his head, sobbing dramatically. Dad, Mom, Scarlett, Ryan didn't do anything. I just fell in the restroom. It has nothing to do with him. Victoria was standing nearby, her face pale, her eyes wide with horror at the sight of Derek's injury. My father's brow was deeply furrowed as his questioning gaze fell on me. Scarlett stepped in front of me protectively, her expression icy. Derek, why don't you try telling the truth for once? Can you stop being so manipulative and vague? My mother looked from a weeping Derek back to me. Ryan, you tell us what happened. I just shrugged calmly. I didn't touch him. Believe it or not, it's up to you. The air in the hallway grew thick with tension. Derek was still crying, and Victoria was looking from me to Derek, a thoughtful, confused expression on her face. My father took a deep breath and addressed the remaining guests. Everyone, I apologize for the disruption this evening. Please forgive this family matter. We will make it up to you all. That was the cue for everyone to leave. Soon, the only people left were our family and the Sterlings. The hotel's on-call doctor had already bandaged Derek's forehead. He sat on a sofa, half his face still red and swollen. My father sat opposite him, his face as dark as a thundercloud. Now that everyone is gone, talk. What really happened? Before I could speak, Derek launched into his story, the tears flowing freely. Dad, I wanted to talk to Ryan. I wanted to tell him that this home, the inheritance, all of it is rightfully his. I won't fight him for any of it. He choked on a sob. But I truly love Victoria. I just wanted to ask him if he could please, he looked at me pleadingly. But he said everything I have should have been his. He said an adopted nobody like me didn't deserve someone like Victoria. And then I slapped you and smashed your head with a mop, I finished for him, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Derek flinched and lowered his head. I know you hate me for taking your place, but Victoria is the one thing, I really love her. I didn't say another word. I just looked at my parents and my sister, waiting for their reaction. Scarlett was the first to break the silence, letting out a sharp, derisive laugh. Derek, in my new film, I play the villain's manipulative best friend who tries to break up the main couple. We filmed a scene almost exactly like this just last week. She shot a withering glare at Derek, whose face was rapidly losing color. Honestly, I feel like you're insulting my intelligence, trying to outact me in my own house. It's embarrassing. My mother sighed, her eyes filled with disappointment. This is the second time, Derek. The vase the other night, your father and I knew what was going on. We kept quiet because we thought you were just having a hard time adjusting. We were giving you the benefit of the doubt. But this is too far. Derek panicked, grabbing my mother's arm desperately. Mom, no, it's not like that. You've known me my whole life. I was just. We thought we knew you, my father interrupted, his voice heavy with fatigue and disappointment. It appears we were wrong. Derek turned to Victoria, grabbing her hand desperately. Victoria, you have to believe me. We've been seeing each other for a while. You know I would never. Victoria slowly pulled her hand away. She opened her purse, took out a small compact mirror, and held it up to his face. Derek, you said Ryan hit your left cheek. Look in the mirror. The handprint is upside down. That only happens when you hit yourself. All the blood drained from Derek's face. I smirked, twisting the knife further. And you said I hit you with a mop. Then my fingerprints should be all over the handle. I looked at my father. If you want to be absolutely sure, we can have the handle dusted for prints. That should clear things up pretty quickly. Derek's eyes rolled back as if he was about to faint. But Scarlett's sharp voice cut through the air. Don't even think about fainting. That trick only works in those garbage web dramas. No sane person thinks passing out solves their problems. Derek, who had started to slump over, straightened up abruptly. Then he collapsed to his knees on the floor, a mess of tears and snot. I'm sorry, Dad, Mom, Scarlett, Victoria. I was just so scared. I was afraid you would all leave me for him, that I would end up with nothing. It was a moment of weakness. Victoria picked up her purse and stood to leave. Derek, you have disappointed me more than I can say. The man I want to be with is not a petty, manipulative coward. Harrison Sterling shook his head gravely. Ashford, let's put the talk of a business merger on hold. I don't think Derek is the right fit for our Victoria. No, Mr. Sterling. Derek scrambled toward him desperately, but a security guard blocked his path. I really do love Victoria. Please, just give me one more chance. My father waved his hand in disgust. Get him out of my sight. The guards grabbed Derek, who was now screaming and struggling violently, and dragged him away. My father turned to the Sterlings, his face etched with shame. Harrison, I am so sorry. That boy is a disgrace. We will discuss the business alliance at a later date. After we sent the Sterlings off and returned to the mansion, my father lost his temper for the first time. He slapped Derek hard across his already swollen face. You embarrassing piece of trash, he roared, pointing at the door. Get out. Go to your birth parents' old house and stay there for a month. And you'd better do some serious thinking about the person you've become. Derek looked desperately at my mother and sister, but they both turned away, refusing to intervene. I stood to the side, watching as the guards dragged him away. His eyes, fixed on me, were filled with a poisonous hatred that sent chills down my spine. I felt nothing. It just goes to show you can dig your own grave. He could have had a life of ease and comfort, but he had to throw it all away on petty jealousy. What an idiot. Still, a small part of me wondered why my parents didn't kick him out for good. Just sending him away for a month seemed incredibly lenient after everything he'd done. The next day, I caught my sister in a good mood and decided to ask. Scarlett, don't you think Mom and Dad are being a little too soft on Derek? She was in the middle of serving me some breakfast, and her hand paused. She sighed heavily. There's some history there, Ryan. When Mom was in high school, she had leukemia. The only person whose bone marrow was a perfect match was her younger sister, Derek's mother. After my aunt and uncle died in that car crash, Mom and Dad felt responsible for Derek. They felt like they owed his mother a debt they could never repay, so they poured all of that gratitude and guilt into raising him. Even now, after what he's done, they can't bring themselves to completely cut him off. It all clicked into place, but a sense of unease settled in my stomach. That kind of love tangled up with guilt was a dangerous thing. I had a feeling Derek wasn't going to just sit quietly and reflect on his sins. Things were calm for a few days. Scarlett had to fly back to London to finish her film, and Derek was supposedly atoning at the old house. I almost let my guard down, but then everything changed. I was on my way home from my first day of business classes when I got a frantic call from my father. "Ryan, get to the university hospital right now. There's been an incident." When I got there, the emergency room hallway was buzzing with activity. Victoria was sitting on a bench, her face as white as a sheet. My mother saw me and rushed over. Ryan, on her way home from campus, two men on a motorcycle forced Victoria's car off the road. Her driver was knocked unconscious, and they tried to drag her out of the car. She gestured toward a hospital room. Derek was driving by and saw what was happening. He jumped in and fought them off to save her. They stabbed him several times before running away. I didn't go into the room. Victoria told me it looked like a lot of blood, but thankfully the wounds weren't deep and had missed any major organs. He wasn't in any danger. He'd just need a couple of weeks to recover. Did they catch the guys who did it? I asked my father. His face was grim. They're gone. It was a professional job. They were on an international flight before the police could even lock down the airports. I frowned deeply. Something about this whole story felt wrong. This heroic rescue had completely changed Victoria's opinion of Derek. But the timing was just a little too perfect. Nothing happens for weeks, and then suddenly, right when he's been cast out and the marriage alliance is off the table, he just happens to be in the right place at the right time to save the day. I stood outside the hospital room, looking through the glass window. Derek was lying in bed, pale and weak, giving Victoria a fragile smile. But I could see the triumphant glint in his eyes that he couldn't quite hide. I turned and walked away, a cold smile on my face. It was clear his little timeout hadn't taught him a thing. It had just given him time to come up with a more elaborate, dangerous scheme. But did he really think this act would hold up? Even I could see the holes in it. My parents were just panicked and worried right now. Once the dust settled, they'd start asking the same questions I was. 2 weeks later, Derek was discharged and moved back into the mansion. He wore a mask of convincing frailty, even offering me a small, deliberate smile, as if our previous conflicts had never happened. I ignored him completely. This quiet was just the calm before another storm. Only this time, I wasn't going to wait for him to make the first move. The following weekend, Derek took Victoria out on a date. Dinner, a movie, the whole perfect boyfriend routine. By the time the movie let out, it was almost 10 at night. Derek led Victoria to the underground parking garage. Just as they reached his car, 3 men in ski masks, brandishing knives, jumped out from behind a concrete pillar. Victoria barely had time to scream before one of them clamped a cloth soaked in chloroform over her mouth. She went limp in seconds. Derek tried to fight back, but the other 2 men easily overpowered him, holding him down while the third knocked him out with the same chloroform rag. When he woke up, he was tied to a cold steel pillar, his hands and feet bound tightly. Tied to the pillar next to him was Victoria, still unconscious. It was a windowless room lit by a single harsh fluorescent bulb. In the corner, a security camera was pointed directly at them. "Well, look who's awake," a distorted voice crackled from a speaker near the camera. It was electronically altered, impossible to identify as male or female. Derek flinched, struggling against his ropes. "Who are you? Why did you kidnap us?" "I'm warning you, my family is the Ashfords. If you touch me, they'll hunt you down." "The Ashfords," the voice chuckled darkly. "That's exactly why we went to all this trouble." Another distorted voice, this one dripping with mockery, chimed in. "We staked you 2 out for days, waiting for the perfect opportunity. You've got the Ashfords and the Sterlings, 2 of the richest families in the state. We're about to get a very big payday." Derek's eyes darted around frantically. "You've got the wrong person. I'm not their real son. I'm just adopted. You should have grabbed Ryan Ashford. He's the real heir. He's worth way more than me. I can tell you how to find him." "Nice try," the first voice scoffed. "We did our homework. Ryan just came back into the picture. To them, he's a stranger. You, on the other hand, they've invested in for 16 years. The voice paused, its tone becoming heavier. "And besides, you've got Miss Sterling here with you, the sole heir to the Sterling fortune. This one score will set us up for life." Just then, a third, more brutal voice cut in. Boss, I say we make this clean. Once we get the money, we kill them both and dump the bodies in the river. It's too risky letting them go. Derek's face went chalk white, sweat soaking through his shirt. No, please. We can talk about this. I'll give you anything you want. Just don't kill me. Anything. What if we want a taste of your pretty little girlfriend here? Derek didn't hesitate for a single second. Take her. Do whatever you want with her. Just give her something to knock her out so she won't remember anything. Just please, once you have the money, let me live. He barely finished the sentence when the speaker went silent. And then Victoria, who was supposed to be unconscious, lifted her head. She flexed her wrists, and right in front of Derek's horrified eyes, easily untied the ropes binding her. They had been tied so loosely it was clear they were just for show. Derek's pupils shrank to pinpricks. The horrifying realization of what was happening dawned on him, but he was powerless, able to do nothing but watch as Victoria walked to the door and opened it. Standing in the doorway were my parents, their faces like stone, and me. Uncle, Auntie, Derek's voice was a dry, cracking whisper. His body started to tremble uncontrollably. I let out a cold laugh. Well, Derek, you've really outdone yourself this time. It's not what it looks like, he stammered, his eyes darting wildly to Victoria. Victoria, listen to me. I was just scared. My mind wasn't working. I wasn't thinking straight. Victoria's face was like ice. I had my doubts after the first attack. You had just been punished, and I happened to get assaulted. You lived in the opposite direction, yet you happened to be on my route home. You were stabbed multiple times, yet every single wound happened to be superficial. She paused, letting the words sink in. Derek, do you really think I'm that stupid? No, that was, he struggled against the ropes, desperate to explain. I casually cleaned my ear with my pinky finger. Funny enough, I had the same questions. So I asked Victoria to help me stage this little play. We let Mom and Dad in on it too. I shook my head. I can't believe you cracked in less than 3 minutes. For a guy who had the balls to stage a fake stabbing, you're a real coward when things get real. Victoria stared at him, her eyes full of disgust. I thought maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe those attackers were real, and you were a hero. A part of me hoped you were. I wanted to see what you would do in a real crisis. And what did you do? Her voice shook with anger. The second your own life was on the line, you served me up on a platter without a second thought. My father turned his face away in revulsion. As of this moment, you're no longer my nephew. Go back to where you came from. The Ashford family is done with you. Derek turned to my mother, tears streaming down his face. Auntie, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Please, for my mother's sake, for what she did for you, give me one more chance. I swear I'll never do anything like this again. My mother just shook her head, the last bit of warmth in her eyes gone. It's too late. Have we not been good to you? We spent millions on your education. Sent you to the best schools. Set you up with a wonderful young woman from a good family. And in return, you've been a snake. You plotted against my son and played these disgusting, manipulative games. I will not give you another chance to hurt my family. I actually tried to like you, Derek, Victoria said, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and fear. But you were so twisted and cruel. If I had actually married you, I'm terrified you would have devoured my family's company until there was nothing left. The light in Derek's eyes finally died. I pulled his smartphone from my pocket. I'd taken it and used his thumbprint to unlock it while he was unconscious, and I grinned. I was just looking for evidence of the fake attack, but I found something much more interesting. No, don't look at that. Derek roared desperately. I ignored him, holding the phone up for my parents and Victoria to see. Looks like your most used app is a web novel platform. You've got quite the reading list. On the screen was the unmistakable interface of an app called NovelZone. The library was filled with titles like, My Parents Ignored Me for the Adopted Son, Now They're Begging Me to Come Back, My 7 Sisters Loved the Imposter and Killed Me, and My Fiancé Fell for the Adopted Brat, So I Walked Away. The plots are insane, I said, scrolling through with disgust. It's all stories where the fake heir cries a little, and the idiot parents forced the real son to donate a kidney, or the protagonist's girlfriend and sisters beat him to a pulp to make the adopted kid smile. It's hilarious. I paused. They act like anyone would believe such garbage. You didn't just read this trash, I continued, opening a document file. You wrote out a whole playbook on how to frame me. It was all there. Plans to fake illnesses for sympathy, instructions on how to self-harm to frame me for assault, and worse. I laughed bitterly. Did you really think real life works like these stupid stories? That mom and dad were just mindless drones who would believe the weak, pitiful adopted son over their own flesh and blood. My father snorted. Even if we had never found Ryan, the Ashford fortune would have gone to Scarlett. It would have never been yours. Victoria saw the rest of the plan on the phone and gasped, her body shaking with rage. You were going to drug me, frame Ryan for it, and then swoop in to play the hero, ruining his reputation forever. You are more evil than I could have ever imagined. I regret the day I ever met you. What do you know? Derek suddenly shrieked, his mind completely snapping. The first time that bastard met you, you called him Ryan in that breathy little voice of yours, like a whore in heat. You always looked down on me for being adopted. The second a real heir showed up, you were ready to jump on him. Don't act so high and mighty. Smack. Victoria slapped him hard across the face. You're insane. Reading those stupid stories has poisoned your brain. Blood trickled from the corner of Derek's mouth, but he started laughing, a wild, unhinged cackle. You forced me to do this. Why did you have to find him? Wasn't I good enough? And don't think I don't know why you named me Derek. A replacement, a substitute. I hate that I didn't find that bastard and kill him years ago. I shouldn't have listened to those novels and played the victim. I should have just hired a truck to run you all off the road on your way home. You adopted me but never gave me everything. You owe me. You all deserve to die. Seeing the crazed look in his eyes, any last flicker of pity in my parents' faces vanished. My father turned to the guards. Take him away, he said, his voice cold as ice. I never want to see this creature again. What you do with him is your business. Just make sure I never hear about it. We turned and walked away. Behind us, we heard the guards moving in and Derek's final desperate screams and curses. I glanced back one last time at the closed door. I didn't feel joy or victory. Just a quiet, final sense of peace. Another fool poisoned by garbage fiction. As if any of that nonsense could happen with sane, rational human beings. Some people, you learn, will not only walk straight into a wall but will try to tear the wall down so they can keep running in the wrong direction. After Derek was gone, my parents never mentioned his name again. It was as if he had never existed. When Scarlett heard the full story, she spent half an hour screaming into the phone. A wolf we raised for 16 years. Thank God he was an idiot and exposed himself early. Who knows what kind of damage he could have done otherwise. Life moved on. I finished college and slowly began to take over the family business. After I graduated, Victoria and I started dating. After what we'd been through, there was already a foundation of trust and understanding between us. The night before our wedding, Victoria was sitting at her vanity, trying on her veil. She turned to me with a playful smile. Ryan, you don't secretly read those trashy web novels, do you? I laughed and shook my head. I've tried. They lower your IQ. It's so bad it's almost funny. Her expression softened as she stood and walked over to me. I'm glad we found each other through all of that chaos. Derek thought he could manipulate everyone with those ridiculous plots, but all he did was show us who we could really trust. I pulled her close. You know what the irony is? In those stupid stories, the adopted villain always wins for at least half the plot. The real family suffers endlessly before getting their revenge. But in real life, people with functioning brains can spot manipulation from a mile away. She laughed. Your parents are brilliant business people. Did Derek really think they built an empire by being gullible? Apparently, he did. Our wedding was beautiful. My parents spared no expense, and Scarlett flew in with half of Hollywood. The Sterling and Ashford families officially merged their business interests, creating one of the largest conglomerates in the region. Harrison Sterling gave a toast at the reception, joking that he was glad his daughter had chosen the right Ashford. A few years later, Victoria and I had our first child, a daughter we named Eleanor. When my mother held her granddaughter for the first time, tears streamed down her face. "I lost one child for 16 years, she whispered. "I'll never take a single moment with this family for granted again." My father retired and handed the company over to me. I discovered I had a natural talent for business strategy, perhaps inherited from him, or perhaps forged through years of having to survive on my wits alone. Either way, the Ashford empire continued to grow. One afternoon, about 5 years after Derek's expulsion, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from a lawyer representing Derek's estate. Apparently, he had died in a car accident while living under an assumed name in another state. He'd been working as a convenience store clerk, barely scraping by. The lawyer informed me that Derek had left a letter. Against my better judgment, I agreed to receive it. The letter was rambling and bitter. He blamed everyone but himself. He claimed we had ruined his life, stolen his future, and destroyed his dreams. He said he hoped we would all suffer the way he had suffered. It ended with a single line: "You took everything from me, and I hope you choke on it." I read it once, then fed it into the shredder in my office. Victoria found me standing by the window, looking out at the city skyline. "Was it from him?" she asked softly. I nodded. "He never learned. Not even at the end." She wrapped her arms around me from behind. "Some people are so consumed by what they think they deserve that they can't see what they actually have. He could have had a good life. Your parents would have set him up with a career, a future. But he wanted your life specifically, and that obsession destroyed him." "I almost feel sorry for him," I admitted. "Almost. Don't," she said firmly. "He made his choices. He tried to hurt you, hurt me, hurt your entire family. The consequences were his own doing." She was right, of course. Years continued to pass. Scarlett won an Academy Award and gave a tearful speech thanking our parents for never giving up on finding me. Eleanor grew up spoiled but kind, with 3 younger siblings who adored her. The Ashford Sterling Corporation became a Fortune 500 company. I never forgot where I came from. Every year, I returned to that small town in Kentucky and donated to the community programs that had helped me survive. I established a scholarship fund for foster children and built a new community center to replace the rundown building where I'd spent so many difficult nights. On one of these visits, I ran into Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor who had often shared her meals with me when I was starving. She barely recognized me in my expensive suit and luxury car. "Marcus Bennett," she gasped. "Is that really you?" "It's Ryan Ashford now," I said with a smile, "but yes, it's me." She started crying, and I hugged her tightly. "You were always such a good boy. I knew you'd make something of yourself." I handed her an envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000. "You kept me alive when no one else cared. This is the least I can do." She tried to refuse, but I insisted. "Please, Mrs. Patterson. Let me do this. You gave me hope when I had nothing." As I drove away from that town for the last time, I reflected on the strange journey my life had taken. From an abandoned child in foster care to the heir of a billion-dollar empire. From having nothing to having everything. But the most valuable thing I'd gained wasn't the money or the mansion or the business. It was the family who had fought to find me, who had believed in me, and who had protected me from someone who wanted to destroy me. Derek had read all those web novels searching for a script to follow, a way to steal what he thought should be his. But he'd missed the most important lesson: real life doesn't follow a script. Real people aren't characters who act according to plot convenience. And real families, the good ones, don't abandon their own just because someone cries louder. I had won, not because I was the protagonist of some story, but because I refused to be a victim. And in the end, that made all the difference.